Webre.com. It's just that
I'm not sure what you did, but I can record, so thank you for that. Whatever you did, it works. Well done.
Oh, okay. So you can record now?
It's
Oh,
already
good.
recording as we speak.
Oh, excellent. Good. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go over, and we're about to go over to go live on Facebook, and we're going to go to News Inside Out. We're about to go live. I'm hitting go live. It's going through the process now. And I'll be putting you on speaker view, King Cornelius, which means that as you speak, you will have the entire
screen.
Speaker view.
That's right. You have the entire screen.
Which means that as you speak, you will have the entire.
Guys,
Hey, welcome everyone. I'm Alfred Lambremont Webre of News Inside Out, and welcome to the first in a series of webinars. We have the great and extraordinary privilege today of being
You okay, Alfred?
yeah, I'm just trying to I just want to mute this there we go, so that there we are. I was getting double audio.
I was hearing it. I was hearing it. Good. It's good.
Yeah. And we have the great and extraordinary privilege to have as our first guest on the News Inside Out live on Facebook webinars, the hereditary king of the Khoisan people. For those who don't know, every person on planet Earth has DNA of the Khoisan people. I can attest to that because I had my own DNA test done by National Geographic, Geno 2.0, and that proved it. I saw it with my eyes. As our guest, I learned from our guest in a very erudite interview with Jeff Rentz. We are with King Cornelius III, who is head of state of the newly declared State of Good Hope in Southern Africa, which is a state that was fused out of the Khoisan people, the Afrikaner people, the Eurokaner people, and the Colored Nation as of September 24th, 2017. And here to lead us in a News Inside Out webinar is the head of state, King Cornelius III. Welcome, King Cornelius, and thank you so much for being here. Over to you.
Kaikuas, that's my mother tongue to say good evening or good day. And then I would say Matitsu, which means how are you?
Well, thank you. Very well, and very happy to be here with you.
And we would say, Kai Setizake.
Tai Sididake.
Thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity and the privilege to tell the world what is really happening in the southern part of Africa. We used to be called South Africa. We are now called the sovereign state of Good Hope. And it was a matter that's been prayed for a long time. We saw the genocide that's happening to our people for centuries, and nobody listened. There's an old Khoisan saying in life that says, just listen for once to what we have to say, so that you may never be ignorant again. But we never had a chance to speak, so nobody could listen. And now you're giving me a chance to speak, to tell the world of what is really happening in the country of my ancestors, my place of birth, and why we did what we really did. Because we couldn't allow the genocide to carry on that is happening today. We cannot change the genocide of the past. There's nothing we can do about it. We cannot even rectify it. We have to forgive it. Because that is the only way we can go forward in life, is by forgiveness. And we've learned that in life, that when you forgive, then you cancel out the anger. So we've canceled out the anger for the genocide that happened to our ancestors for thousands of years, or hundreds of years. And we realize that too many people in this country is suffering from similar genocide today, where children a mother gives birth to a child, and she don't want the child anymore, and they call it post-pregnancy abortion. And she can kill the child. It is okay. And that is not acceptable. When people start eating other people, that's not acceptable. When people are killed just because of the color of their skin, that's not acceptable. And then I am the legal custodian of all Khoisan land of Southern Africa. I'm the firstborn child for 16 generations. That has been recorded from 1695 until now. And as the custodian of the land, I am also the custodian of the people. My people and all the people that lives on the land and from the land. And because I saw this genocide is happening, I heard the cry of the people. And nobody did anything about it. Their politicians are bitching. Their politicians are saying, yeah, but you're not doing it, and I'm not doing it. And nobody's doing anything. And when the people spoke to me and says, here is a solution. And Professor Nagin helped us a lot. He has helped us tremendously. And when we heard that there's an opportunity for us, because we need to understand in 2001, when the fishermen wanted to go catch fish, the people at the waterfront in Cape Town said, no, we need to build a private beach for the very rich. And they said to me, if we go anywhere else, we're going to drown. And I went to the slipway, and I annexed the land under international law to stop them from stopping the fishermen that's been doing subsistence fishing for years. And I went to the United Nations and I read out the letter of annexation. And up until today, the slipway is still there. In 2004, in 2003, a farmer bulldozed the ablution facilities to the workers. They've been living in horse stables. There's no electricity. Children that is 5 years old has never seen a toilet. And I went to the farm. I says, why are you doing this? The graves on the farm, people have been buried there since 1890. And then I told the farm workers, I says, clean up the farm, clean up the cemetery. People came past and says, was there an accident? Why is there so many crosses? And I says, this cemetery has been here since 1890. And then I knocked on the trees and annexure of the land. And the farmer has, up until today, the farmer has given all those farm workers beautiful houses. So somebody had to say something to stop the abuse. And that's the only reason why I did it. In 2004, everybody was talking about Robben Island and Nelson Mandela and Robben Island, Nelson Mandela. And then I took all the young people with me and I went to Robben Island and I showed them the grave of my ancestor, whose name is Krotoa or Eva van Leerhof, who died there in 1674. And she was Jan van Riebeeck's interpreter. And because of her royal status, they exhumed her body and buried her in the castle. Later, they exhumed the bones, and she became part of the Grote Kerk in Adley Street. And they wouldn't listen to us. And on live television, I went to the next Robben Island. A week later, they invited me with Nelson Mandela to the opening of the gateway to Robben Island, but they ignored us. We asked them to put a plaque there for our ancestors so that the world can see when they come to Robben Island that this is the grave of Gretoe or Eva van Meerhof the first, the wife of the first governor of Cape. And they wouldn't do it. In 2009, they went to the Salem Mountain in Hout Bay. The people live on the mountain, live from the mountain. And I said, this is ridiculous. They can't do that. How can you sell a mountain? Donald Trump and Oprah Winfrey and Toka Sequala and Nelson Mandela Foundations were people to come auction the mountain. They came to auction the mountain or buy it. And then early one morning in the rain, I walked up on the mountain on live television. I knocked, hole in the ground, and I said, I, King Cornelius, annex the land for the benefit of my people to live on and to live from. And coming down the mountain, the people were excited about it. But the police weren't happy about it. So they started shooting rubber bullets and tear gas. And I stood in front, and my wife and my son, because you need to show courage in things you need to do to rectify injustice. And in 2010, when I arrived in Germany at the Genealogical and Heraldic Science Conference with 55 scientists throughout the whole world, the Slovakian government representatives came and says, we study heraldry. And we know that in the early years, the kings always run in front in battle, but never in the 21st century. And they said, but this king stood in front of rubber bullets and tear gas for the benefit of his people. And they gave me an award of bravery, and I was dumbstruck at the time for it. But I was grateful, and I said, it is not for the things that I did, but for the things I need to do. And that gave me more courage to rectify the injustices of the present. So on the 21st of September, I called some people together, and I says, we need to forgive the injustices of the past. All the atrocities of the past, we need to forgive that, to give our ancestors peace, and to show them that we can forgive. And then we signed a treaty between the Afrikaner, who calls himself the Webre, the Eurokaner, the Coloured and the Khoisan people, so that we can stop the genocide that is happening today and form a unity for the way forward so that all people can benefit from it. The problem is that people don't think about the right to self-determination anymore. It's a universal international law that says every single person has the right to self-determination. Every person was born free. Every person was born with the opportunity to decide what he wants to do with his life, that nobody dictates to him. And in South Africa, life is being dictated to us. We are being told what to do, how to do it, where we must stay, what we're not allowed to do. And for us to have the opportunity, just the opportunity, to determine our own future for ourselves and our children and our grandchildren, it is something that our minds couldn't conceptualize. It was just a fantastic idea. And then on the 24th of September, I went to the castle and I read out the Declaration of Secession. Because then by that time, all the most of the Afrikaners, most of the Eurokaners, a lot of the Coloureds and a lot of the Khois came together, and they were excited about this new opportunity of freedom. And after I read out the Declaration of Secession, I said to them, now you are free. And you had to see the excitement on their face. It was, in 1994, when we've made the first cross for voting, when we got democracy, we believed we were free. This, on the 24th of September, was true freedom. True freedom. Because now nobody is going to tell me how I must do things, what I must do to satisfy them. And when I explained the process to everybody, I says, the king will not govern the people. You need to understand. I am the custodian of the land and the people. I need to see that nothing is being abused. That is my responsibility. But the people will govern. And I say that in every video, there will be a representative of every nation. So that nobody can say, I'm not represented. But in this country, the sovereign state of good hope, there's no race. All men are equal. But in this sovereign state of good hope, there's also no politics. Because it's the federal government. And out of a portfolio, the four people, they will choose one person who will be the chairperson of that portfolio. No prime ministers. He'll be the chairperson of that portfolio. And he will present his portfolio or his policies to a parliament of kings. Also four people. One of each nationality. And these people will then look and scrutinize the policy and process. And if they are happy with it, they will bring it to the king and he will endorse it. If he sees that that policy would benefit the people and not be detrimental to them, he endorses it. So people will decide their own destiny. And for the first time in their life, they have an opportunity of absolute freedom. And nowhere in the world is that freedom available. Only in the sovereign state of good hope. And this is an opportunity, and I make them aware that the supreme ruler of this country is God. They need to realize that. And we're going to live by godly laws and godly values of love and kindness and sharing with kindness and being good and doing good. Because if we don't exercise these values, then how are we going to be happy? And these are the important things in life. Because you look around, you see so many unhappy people. They have no pleasure in life. They did a study in South Africa or wherever in the world, and it says, for how many minutes a day does a parent listen to his children? And they discovered that the parents only listen 8 minutes a day to the children. And this is where the old Khoisan saying that comes and says, just listen for once. And when you're happy, you listen. Because a wise man said to me one day, he says, when you listen, you can hear what people are saying. And when you hear what people are saying, you know what they're talking about. And when you know what they talk about, you can understand how they feel. And when you know how they feel, you can make wise decisions. Now, when people are happy, they always smile. And when they smile, they show others how happy they are. And when you have that environment in the country, then there's peace. And this is the exciting part of the way forward for us, is that the opportunities are available. People just need to understand. And I think that they are so caught up in their captivity. It reminds me of the time of Moses. They're so caught up in their captivity, they cannot see the freedom that is in their face. That's for them just to hold on to. And the Khoisan people, I need to tell them that you need to understand that your First Nation indigenous status will never be removed from you. You will always be the First Nation indigenous people. But like your ancestors invited, the Afrikaners, the Eurokaners, everybody, that is our nature. And this is why our hands are always open. My grandfather said to me one day, he says, my boy, fetch me a handful of sand. And I came back and my hand was closed and he says, where's the sand? I said, I don't know, Pa. He says, now go back and don't close your hand. I came back and says, did you lose any sand? I said, no, Pa. He says, never close your hand. Because when your hand is closed, you lose that which you have. But when your hand is open, people can take out and they can put in and you become a blessing. And I've tried to live by those values by keeping my hands open so that others can know I can either help or I can give. And when you live by those values, then people see your heart and they can understand that material things in life is only a means to an end. Because a lot of people are going to say now, yeah, but he's the king and he's going to acquire so much wealth. And they need to understand that money is a means to an end for the benefit of all the people. So I hope I answered some of the questions that I'm sure you had in your mind. Do you have any questions for me?
Sure. There's one question that people all over the world are asking, and that is that there are a series of prophecies that are mentioned in many holy books, and they're mentioned through the configurations in the skies through the constellation Virgo. And that is that on September 23rd, 2017, a day before the declaration of secession, there was a coming together of a prophecy almost of 6,000 years, that there would be almost a new birth. And then on September 24th, all of a sudden, there was a declaration of secession, and Good Hope was born. And I'm wondering if you have come across that, if that's in the consciousness of the founders of Good Hope, of any of the nations there, because from all across, in many different faiths, in many different consciousnesses of people who are trying to make a better world, September 23rd, 2017 was, it's the woman in the sky just gives birth to this new thing. And I can send you links to, many different references to these verses in the Old Testament, the New Testament, many different other holy books and all of that.
I wasn't aware of it. I didn't know about it.
Yeah.
But,
and it's part of why there's like this rush of excitement that all of these new things are happening, that almost are like part of a larger plan, and I wonder if you could speak to what you feel about a larger plan, because it seems like there's a larger plan involved here. I know that I've done some programs with your media spokesperson, Mel Vey, about what the Kalahari Desert used to be. And it used to be, if you go back, it used to feed over 6 billion people prior to being a desert. And so it's like almost a revival of the southern tip of Africa, which was very verdant. It's like it's coming back to life. So I wondered if you could speak to all of those things. It's like Good Hope and these developments are almost bringing a new life, not only to Southern Africa and to your people and the 4 nations there, but also a new hope to the world, because the world is in a very dangerous moment right now, King Cornelius.
I'm going to try to answer the question. I prayed over this a very long time, because I'm fortunate I have a good relationship with my Father in heaven. I talk to him on a regular basis. And I prayed, and I wanted to know if this is the right thing to do. Because the saying in life that says, evil will prevail when good men do nothing. And I don't classify myself as good, but I need to stop the injustice. So the Sunday morning before going to the castle for the annexation, I listened to some spiritual music, and my favorite hymn is "Here I Am, Lord." And in one of the verses, the question is asked, "Whom will I send?" And the answer is, "Here I am, Lord. I will go. I will save your people." And with that feeling in my soul, I went to church the morning. And on my way to church, I said, "Lord, you need to give me courage to do what I need to do." Because being responsible for 4 million invisible people, It's a big task, but it's manageable because we're invisible. But being responsible for in excess of 15 million people is a task that Lord, I don't know if I can do it, I said. And then we went to a different congregation where we normally attend, and we sat in church, and I don't know the minister. And he says that yesterday they had a discussion when King Solomon had to go build a temple for the Lord. And his father, King David, said to him, he says, be of courage, be of good courage, and do not be afraid, for God is with you. And I smiled because I just asked God to give me courage. And here I get this message. And then after service, I went to greet the minister to thank him for the word. And he said to me, he says, God bless you in what you must go do. And he don't know me. And he doesn't know what I was going to do. And you know, when I came to the castle, I had that no fear. Because I knew that this isn't God's plan. I didn't know about the constellations because my focus was on my people and the planning and everything needed to go into place. And when it was done, when the annexation, when the secession was done, it was like, it was a feeling of, oh, man, I can't explain to you how I felt. A feeling of great joy, but anticipation of the responsibility still to come. Now, I don't know, I know what's going to happen to my people. When I say my people, I'm talking about the Afrikaner, the Eurokaner, the Coloured, and the Khoi. Those are my people I'm responsible for. I know that they're going to govern themselves because and one of the questions they asked me, they said, and religion in the country, I says, all those religions that worship God is welcome in this country. All religions under God is welcome in the country. If you're not under God, the people will decide. And the people is going to decide how they're going to live in this country, what the laws are going to be, what the policies are going to be. And from what I envisage, it is going to be an exciting time for the way forward. And we are going to need people from the rest of the world that has expertise and knowledge to come forward and says, can I add value? This is my profile. I'm good at this. I can add value to your people in this portfolio and that project. They're most welcome to do so because it's for the benefit of all the people. So when people want to know how are we going to grow, is other people in the world going to benefit from our newfound freedom? Absolutely. Absolutely. They are welcome to come visit us and come see how we live and come enjoy our peace. And when they come, they can book their plane ticket and says, I'm going to Good Hope. And they can experience Good Hope. Because the love is going to become back. I said the other day to one of the ministers, I says, people have lost the love for God. When you lose the love for God, you lose the love for yourself. Because then you lost your self-respect. And when you bring that back, and everybody can greet his neighbor without anger or anticipation or fear or racism, can you picture it in your mind what a nice place this is going to be? I can. Is there any more questions?
Yes. You know, I had heard it turns out that you're very distinguished legal advisor, Professor Winston P. Nagin, and I are both we're both trained at the Yale Law School by Professor Myers McDougall, a very distinguished teacher in international law. Mm-hmm. And I have heard Professor Nagin's interview on the legal basis for the state of Good Hope, and he is such a sound international legal analyst. And I had heard that there were 3 African nations that have said, yes, we will acknowledge and recognize the state of Good Hope, which is, of course, begins the whole process of the welcoming of the state of Good Hope into the larger community, the international community, so you can bring your piece into the larger community, which will be a great benefit, so that you can bring your wisdom into the larger community. And we have that issue, but they're waiting for who's going to go first.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I wondered, and of course, then we also heard that Professor Nagin has had prior experience of successfully bringing new nations in Latin America into the world community. And they have a tradition in Latin America where the nations are not that jealous of each other down there. There's a tradition of live and let live, and, you know, if there's a new nation. So I thought that perhaps it might be a new nation in Latin America that Professor Nagin might go to one of them and have be the first one to publicly acknowledge and get up in the United Nations, or just publicly acknowledge Good Hope. And I wondered if you had any comment on that whole issue, that is, who is going to get up and say, well, we have a new sister nation here, the nation of Good Hope, and we welcome her, and we wish her Godspeed, and we're going to bring her into the family, and this is what's going to happen. So I just wanted to get your insights and your comments on that.
Yeah, Professor Nagin has been an integral part in my life since 2008. And he's been guiding me with all the documentation he's given me over all the years. I should have had my master's degree in international law already. But when the United Nations passed the Declaration for the Rights of Indigenous People in 2007, and he was with the Shuar Nation in Ecuador, and he drew up their constitution using the declaration. They then sent it to me and says, you can now use this as the constitution for the Royal House of the Khoisan. And I changed some of the names in there, and we adopted that declaration as our constitution. And it was exciting because 143 countries in the world had signed that declaration. The constitution of the sovereign state of Good Hope is exactly the same constitution that's already been signed by 143 countries throughout the whole world. Now that makes our life much easier, because we adhere to all the fundamental values of human rights and international law that they approved. And this is the basis of our country. It's our constitution. Out of this constitution, policies and bylaws will be drawn up that will be in conjunction with this constitution. So when we present it to any country, and to the other countries that is sympathetic to us, present to them and says, see, this is our constitution. We adhere to all international human rights laws and international laws, which you already have signed, which makes our life so much easier. And the way forward and how we plan to run our government, it is a unique situation because no country in the world has 4 members at heads of portfolio. So it stops corruption firstly. If you have 4 people in charge of one portfolio, the 4 of them are going to decide what is the best for the way forward for this particular portfolio. And one of them will be chosen to present that decision to the King's Parliament. So there'll be no misappropriation, there'll be no corruption. One person cannot steal money. when 4 people is in charge. 2 people might, it's possible, 2 people. 3 people, you got a tough chance, but 4 people never. So we eliminate the opportunity for mankind to become corrupt. The King's Parliament is presented of 4 people, like I said earlier. But the people in those, the head of those portfolios are going to send in their CVs. Nobody's going to be chosen. You must send in your CV and says, this is what I'm good at doing. This is my portfolio and I'm qualified in doing this. The King's Parliament will assess and which person is the best for that portfolio. Once they've done that, the person is employed as a portfolio holder or head of that portfolio. So there's going to be no nepotism, no bribery, and the country will be managed and run by people that have the capacity and the ability. So we know that from past experience, from what we've learned in the past 23 years of South Africa, is where people are doing work and they have no knowledge of how to do it. So from that lesson, we need to rectify it. So we say, if you have the capacity and the ability to do the job, then you get paid to do it. So we're going to have professional people in portfolios that is not being voted in, but is being employed in that position. And if he doesn't produce, because he's employed, if he doesn't produce, the people around him is going to tell him, maybe you should get yourself another job. So again, the people is going to govern. And this should give people peace of mind knowing that they are going to determine their own right for the way forward. And that this word, and they say you mustn't abuse the word, but the right to self-determination is such a beautiful word. And people need to understand what the word really means. You have the right to decide how you're going to live. You have the right to decide where you're going to go to school. No, there's a thing in South Africa, in South Africa, not in the sovereign state anymore, but in South Africa, you cannot go to that school because you don't live in the area. Or you can't go to that school because you don't earn enough money. My wife said I mustn't say this, but I think I should. It is my desire, and I'm going to present it to the government of South Africa, that every person in this country, the sovereign state of Good Hope, every eligible person, I need to say this, every eligible person that's entitled to be here is going to get 100,000 back. This is my vision, to get 100,000 back. And the reason why I'm going to do this is the world says, don't give a man a fish for a day. Teach him how to fish, to feed him for a lifetime. And we say that's wrong. That is wrong. You need to give a man a fish, for you don't know when last he ate. And then you teach him how to fish. But above all that, show him where to fish. And once he's caught the fish, you now teach him how to sell the fish. And now you can walk away because he's self-sustainable. So when we give every eligible citizen in the sovereign state of Good Hope 100,000 rand, and we have television programs for them how to create their own businesses, how to manage their money, how to invest it. Firstly, it's going to give them a sense of belonging, a sense of ownership, a sense of well-being, because we will have no hungry people in the sovereign state of Good Hope. There will be no hungry people. And then secondly, those that work with their money, if you have 5 people in the family, then you can start a co-op. But if you abuse that money and you waste it, then you have to come forward and then you go to the army. You go work in the army. Or you go work as a candy stripe in the hospital. Or you go work in the guana factories. But you're going to work for your money because you were given the opportunity with a fish. You were given the opportunity of where to fish, how to sell it, and you refused it. So now you have to work for your money. But when every eligible citizen in South Africa gets 100,000 rand, immediately the economy is boosted. Immediately. Because you're going to spend the money within the country. You're not going to spend it outside the country. So the country grows. And I often say to people, when I arrived at the United Nations the first time, they asked me, who are you? Where are you from? I said, I'm an African. Very proud, I'm an African. Which part? I said, I'm a South African. What nationality are you? I said, I'm Khoi. I'm First Nation Indigenous. And they bowed to me, and I didn't understand why. A few days later, I found out that they knew more about my heritage than I did because they studied about us in the schools believing we're extinct. That statement that I made that says, I'm First Nation, I belong, I come from. That gave me a sense of well-being, a sense of pride and dignity that I am. And now the people in the sovereign state of Good Hope can say, I am part of, I belong. And if every eligible, entitled citizen in that sovereign state can say, I belong, I'm part of. When I served my apprenticeship one year, I was working in the workshop, and there were screws laying on the floor, bolts and nuts laying on the floor. And the owner of the company says, why didn't you pick it up? I picked it up now. He says, you see, the reason why I asked you to pick it up, because you're not a shareholder of the company. If you were a shareholder of the company, you'd have picked it up because that is part of your investment. Now, if every citizen, eligible citizen in the sovereign state of Good Hope, knows that he is part of and he belongs here, he's going to look after it. Because it's all ours. It's all ours. And I am just a custodian of it to see that you don't abuse it. Do you have any other questions for me? I hope I answered your question.
No. Yes, thank you. These are such in-depth, such insight. Thank you so much. I have another question, and that is that the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, has now actually issued an agreement and become a partner with a new program directed specifically at projects in the developing areas throughout all regions in the Southern Hemisphere, but in the Northern Hemisphere also, to raise up all people. And this is a new development for the ICJ, the progressive elements in the ICJ, the International Court of Justice. And these have to do with the beneficial aspects of digital currencies, what we call cryptocurrencies. And what is called the Digital Currency Reserve Foundation, and they are going to be issuing 4 different digital currencies that are asset-backed, specifically for the populations of areas such as Good Hope, such that you're not going to be only dealing with fiat currencies, which you and I know that they're controlled by the banks that are controlled by the powers that be. These are new digital currencies where individuals really, the banks are irrelevant. And I happen to have had a conversation last night with some of the people that are involved in this area that deal directly with the ICJ, and I asked them that we would be having this webinar tomorrow, and if they would be interested in having, connecting with the state of Good Hope and with yourself, and so that the state of Good Hope and your cabinet would look at the possibilities of these fully asset-backed digital currencies being made available to the peoples of Good Hope, which is, you know, I mean, they offer a lot of freedoms, you know, in parallel to the fiat currencies like the Rand, but the Rand are controlled by the banks, which are owned by the powers that be,
Absolutely.
as we all know. And so I just wondered if you would be open. We can forward you all of the links. We can connect you up with the people who are connected with all of this so that you and your cabinet could go forward on an informal basis to look at all of this and just carry forward.
Absolutely, that would be fantastic.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Then I
Thank
will.
you.
I will forward that. Ad on our backs because of these banks. I won't use names, but we all know who the banks are controlled by.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah. Well, that concludes the major questions that I had at my end. I don't know if you had any other issues that you wanted to bring up. We are certainly very, very gratified that by this, you certainly have an open invitation to come on and have a News Inside Out webinar. These are broadcast on Facebook, and so anytime you would like to come on and continue an education aspect or make some special announcement or whatever occasion, you have an open invitation here. And this will be broadcast later as a news feature, and we'll be sending those links to you along with the accompanying article as well.
Oh, thank you very, very much, David. Thank you, Alfred. It's been an absolute blessing to have you interview me.
Well, thank you.
It is all my struggles for the past 18 years. That's how long we've been fighting, just to be legislated as people in the land of our ancestors. And we've been fighting for such a long time. And all I said to my advisors and my counsel, I says, I need airtime. I need international airtime to tell the world of what is really happening in South Africa, what is happening to our people. And that is why in 2010, I went to the Human Rights Commission in South Africa, and I said to them, I want to lay a charge against the president. I said, you need to understand that the Human Rights Commission in South Africa only deals with South African human rights law. We don't deal with international human rights law. And then I went to the public protector, who is the watchdog for government. And they said, well, you need to speak to the minister, you can't speak to the president. I said, but the president made a promise to me. And then I went to the High Court and I laid the charge of cultural genocide against President Jacob Zuma. And I got a case number and I was so excited. I couldn't believe it. And it was in newspaper articles and everywhere. And then I got a benefactor. One of my people became our benefactor, and he had government contracts. And we had advocates and we had lawyers and political science students and anthropologists. And our senior counsel was Paul Hoffman, one of the most senior counsels in South Africa. And they said to us, there's no way you're going to lose this case. You're going to win it. There's no question about it. And one day we were sitting in the advocates' chambers, and one of DTI's lawyers, one of the government lawyers, walks in and he says, I was sent to come offer you an out-of-court settlement of 44 million rand. And I said to him, now, explain to me, how do I divide 44 million rand into 4 million people? I said, no, thank you. The matter must proceed forward to court. Just after that, my benefactor lost all his government contracts. So the matter is now off the road because we never had any money to take the matter forward, even though we knew that we're going to win the case. So we tried all legal avenues. We followed all the due processes of the South African law. And nobody listened. And by seceding the Western Cape, Northern Cape, and part of the Eastern Cape until the Fish River gave us freedom. So now some people ask me, now, why didn't you take the whole of the Eastern Cape? And again, you see, in 1994, our government invited us because the United Nations pushed them and says, you need to change your policies now. You need to include the First Nation indigenous people into the House of Traditional Leaders that you started with Nelson Mandela in 1994. And they invited us to be part of the drafting of the white paper to include us into the House of Traditional Leaders. And we were excited. We sat there for weeks saying, this is what we want and this is what we want. And then in 2003, that white paper became an act that says, Traditional Leaders Act of South Africa. And I went forward and I said, now where do we sit? And they said, sorry, it's not for you. It's only for the black people of South Africa. But you can benefit from the act if you have an association with a black king. So I go down to the Eastern Cape, above the Fish River, and I go to King Zandile of the Khagabi Kingdom. And I came there, and as I came there, he says, we know this land is yours. I say, I didn't come for the land. I come to re-sign a peace treaty that your great-grandfather had signed with my great-grandfather when you came over the Khai River the first time in the 1700s. And immediately he signed it. And a few months later, they slaughtered an ox to have it as a blood covenant in the same kraal where the first peace treaty was signed. And then the premier of the Eastern Cape, all the MECs, all the traditional leaders, and 3 kings went up to a mountain called Ndaba Kadoda, the mountain of Ndoda. And there they gave back my grandfather's mountain to me. And I came back to the Western Cape to government. I says, now I fulfilled all the requirements. Where do I sit? They says, the act is now repealed. We will draft a new act so we can include you. So every time we follow all due processes, they cut our legs off. And then we're going to start from the very beginning again. So now I'm saying to the Khoisan people, we don't have to go to government and ask them for anything. We ask nobody anything because we have everything. When you have freedom and the right to self-determination, you have everything and it's in your hands. All you have to do is take it. And when people understand that this is available to them in the sovereign state of good hope, we're going to be a blessed country. Absolutely blessed. I can feel it.
Amen. Well, thank you. Mel, do you have any questions that you would like to ask King Cornelius, or? Sorry, I can't hear you.
Beg your pardon. Hi. Thank you, King Cornelius. It's always lovely to hear you speaking. It's very reassuring. And, you know, there's obviously a lot of questions that keep coming forward to us. So I do just want to say to people out there who may be listening to this that there will be a website going up shortly where all the documents will be placed, where many of the major questions can be answered, and where there will be a point of contact so that there can be a two-way communication between yourselves and the public, and where you will find people coming forward, presenting you. Now that you've positioned yourself in this way, people will be coming forward and presenting you with opportunities, solutions, because, you know, as Alfred's already mentioned, there is so many projects behind the scenes out there. And particularly in our circles of life that we work in, you know, you do tend to come across these people, and there are just amazing new systems of governance, particularly when it comes to things like, how to go about, for example, creating the trading structure within countries. One of the ways in which we've always thought was interesting was the resource-based economy model of Jacques Fresco, where the people and their sacred labor is what gives the value to the currency, as opposed to it just being made up out of thin air. And this is the way in which a lot of people are asking, how would 100,000 rand, or whatever currency you want to call it, how would that be given to people, and where would that come from? Who's that payment coming from? And ultimately, people also need to understand that South Africa, or the sovereign state of Good Hope, even without the gold reserves and diamonds, is hugely rich in resources. And that is where the true value of the country really lies, is within those resources. And those resources have tradable value. And what we've got to stop doing is sending all of those resources out of the country in the form of international debt, which has been imposed upon the country by people who have facilitated the enslavement of South Africa to the international bankers. So, it's interesting, because we always, I could never understand why, under Nelson Mandela, he didn't just cancel out the debt of the previous government, because surely the debt accumulated under the apartheid government wasn't what the responsibility of the African National Congress government. Yet they just carried on paying the debt to the international bankers and enslaving Africa's resources to the few at the very top to benefit. So the first step, obviously, would be, of course, to take control of the financial systems within the country, and stop sending that money out the country, and then you absolutely could. I mean, for example, if you stop spending that money on military and defense, which you shouldn't have to sit in a state of sending people to war to fight wars in other countries, and we shouldn't be supplying troops to international armies, as is what happens in South Africa, mercenaries and all that kind of thing. When you take all the money spent on arms and munitions and you actually redistribute it back amongst the people, there is so much to go around. It actually can, house, feed, clothe, medically care for every single person, so that they have the opportunity to truly develop their talents and to truly reach their potentials and live their dreams and create a better world. But again, that comes with a huge re-education, because every kid kind of gets programmed as a kid into wanting to be a footballer or a rock star. No, we need to re-educate people that those are glorified ritual players. What you actually need are people who aspire to getting back into the community and society, a non-competitive educational basis. Because at the moment, the way children are educated doesn't gear them towards creating a fair, peaceful, just, sustainable world. It actually puts people up against each other in a competitive mode, precipitating the warlike mentality, which is destroying our planet. So, the whole restructuring comes with an educational restructuring, and it comes with, of course, education and media are inextricably linked. So one of the things that we're going to be doing is obviously looking to create a new educational media base. I'm already advising King Cornelius, and we're setting up a website where links to interesting projects can be found, alternative modalities. And that way we build an entire information base from which you can draw ideas to develop modalities and methods of best practice that'll work when you are truly trying to create a sovereign state where people are self-determining. So the great thing is that there are so many beautiful people, as I've said, who've come forward with projects, and we are looking forward to obviously exploring all the options, and that platform to do so will be available very, very soon. So it's obviously there are a lot of people also asking the question now. We'll get to the question now, King Cornelius. It's taking a bit of time, and no one seems to be responding in the South African government. Tell us what is going on and how things are moving along. Give us a bit of a progress report.
Okay, thanks, Mel. can I answer the last question later? I'm going to say something to what you said earlier about the 100 grand, the 100,000. We had a project in South Africa called Social Justice Movement, and we wanted to rectify the injustice of the present, because government decided in 1996. Government decided, or the Truth and Reconciliation Commission decided, that only 20,000 people suffered under apartheid. And that was not acceptable, because only 20,000 black people got money, and government put R1 billion aside to pay them reparations. And 300 million rand was paid out already to them. And what about us? We suffered under apartheid. We should also get reparations. But in 2005, our government signed a declaration at the United Nations saying that all people that suffered under humanitarian injustices must get reparations. So they justified why the blacks could get reparations, but because we're not legislated as people, we're not entitled to any reparations. And the people started talking under themselves and saying, the mineral wealth of our country, of South Africa, is valued at 36 trillion rand. And we're getting nothing. What if the government gives 1% to every citizen, just 1% to every citizen, and then you put a monetary value of 1,000 rand to it, and then in 20 years' time, every citizen will be a millionaire. Now, if they had done that in 1994, then by now every citizen would have been a millionaire, just by putting 1,000 rand monetary value to a share. But they didn't do it. But nothing stops them from doing it now. So we presented this to them, and nobody's listening. We put it on paper to them, and it goes into file 13. So the people are now standing up, and fortunately for us, in the sovereign state of Good Hope, we're not going to have that problem. But my brothers and sisters in South Africa are still going to have that problem. And this is what tore me apart in the very beginning, and says, how can I only secede part of the land? And that was a big battle for me. What about the other people, other Khoisan people that's living outside the borders in South Africa? But we're going to help them. We're going to try to help them. And we're going to say, but you're welcome to come home. You're welcome to come home. But we're still going to try to push them for the social justice movement, so that all the people in South Africa can benefit from it. But I don't speak about South Africa because that is not important for me anymore. I want to speak about the sovereign state of development. And that is important to me. And the reason why we are quiet in South Africa, why no media has promoted or put this thing out, is because it's controlled by our government. The government won't allow the media to present this. Time of the secession on the 24th of September, we had I think a 10-minute blackout of the internet. It was cut completely. So we know that government don't want people to know what is happening here. Social media and your programs are helping us tremendously. And from the legal point of view, what I've been told and guided is that international law says that you need to have a demarcated area. And we have a demarcated area. International law says we need to have the people. And we have the people. International law says we need to have a shadow government. And we have a shadow government. And national law says we need to have a sovereign state or a country that is sympathetic and supports us for the way forward. That is the one we're still busy with. When that is finished, this becomes a legal sovereign state within the continent of Africa. So the people must be patient. They must know that we're busy, that there's just one more hurdle to cross before we cross the winning line. And once we've done that, then we are a legal, a legitimate sovereign state within the continent of Africa. I hope that answered the question now.
Yes, thank you, King Cornelius. Alfred, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
I'm fine. I've asked all of my questions.
I hope I added value to people's lives and to your life, because my purpose in life is to add value without causing harm. So if I added value to anybody's life, then I'm fulfilling my purpose of being on this earth.
Well, I would say as a lifelong observer and a former professor of law in a couple of universities, and that you, King Cornelius, are an exemplary head of state, and one would wish that every head of state would emulate your example, and we would have a much happier planet. So we want to support all of your efforts and support the entry of and emergence of the state of Good Hope into the family of nations, because I think that the family of nations has a lot to learn from how the state of Good Hope develops and interacts, and how its diverse people and interact and do the best with all of the natural resources that it has, and how it interacts with its fellow nations and the fellow human community. So I would really commend everyone to follow the example of the state of Good Hope, and I say that quite seriously. So you have our full faith from all of our enterprise, and this year happens to be our 50th reunion of our Yale Law School class, and I've been singing the high praises of the state of Good Hope among our reunion class. So in all my areas of influence, I've been drawing people's attention. So
I want to share something with my part of my culture is, I think we're the only country or the only people in the world that has 3 words for thank you, and Mel knows it. We have 3 words for thank you. And my first word in my mother tongue is gangans, which means thanks. And the second word is kaiaios, which means big thank you. So when I say tamaku, I say thank you with deep gratitude. So to you, Alfred, and to Mel and everybody else supporting us, tamaku, from the Royal House of the Khoisan.
Oh, thank you. I feel honored. Thank you.
And God bless you for the way forward for having me and the sovereign state of Good Hope. And 15 million people that's going to live here. And all the expats are welcome to come home.
We're coming soon, don't you worry. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. We look forward to obviously being with you and being able to step there, watching this process complete. It's going to be very exciting, and obviously we're there to offer our support in helping you get the message out as far and wide, because we understand that mainstream media, of course, are blocking the story, obviously.
Thanks very much, Mel.
Sure. So, King, yeah, certainly. As I say, you have a standing invitation to come on our channel, King Cornelius. And are there any words you would like to leave our audience, which is worldwide? Yeah.
I said one day when I received an award, and I said, now that you've seen my face and you know me, when you bend your knee and you speak to my father, tell him that we need all the help and all the blessings in the sovereign state of Good Hope. And that would add value to our life here in this country. And that is my message to everybody out.
Well, thank you. And I'm sure that the world will hear that and will come with their assistance and their support. Thank you.
Okay.
Until soon.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.